Hey everybody, this is Ainsley from vintagekarma. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're a tattoo artist, let me help you take your tattooing to the next level with portfolio reviews and critiques, just like this video, to show what you can do right now to immediately improve your tattooing without the need to take expensive, lengthy courses that take you away from the work you have to do every day. So I've been tattooing for around 15 years. And in that time, I've built quite a reputation of doing cover-ups and reworks, and that's what this video series is all about. Of course, I don't do just cover-ups and reworks. I also do plenty of tattoos from scratch. So if you want to see my cover-up website, you could check that out at redoyourtattoo.com. And if you want to check out all of my tattoos as well as everybody else's at my shop, you can check us out at artofvintagekarma.com. So today we have our first submission by Jess, and she wants me to go over her white rabbit tattoo, and I'm going to do it in full detail, as well as identifying what colors will be used to make any of the corrections or improvements using the Eternal Ink name. So looking at the quick kind of before and after, you'll see the areas that we're going to be focusing on will be the eye, a little bit of background, and definitely kind of creating a better resolution to the bottom of the piece to give it a little bit more of a finished look. And here's a quick look of the finished product with the reference photo, just to kind of show you what we were working from. So here's our palette, not set in stone. You could substitute similar colors, but what I'm suggesting to use is black. Doesn't have to be eternal black, could be any black you prefer. We're gonna use slate blue, true blue, baby blue as our blues. For our neutrals, we're gonna be using liver and gray and then white. And for our warm tones, we're going to be using Old Orchid, Tangerine, and Cotton Candy. So let's jump right into it. Once again, I'm going to be doing this on Procreate. I'm going to lay out the original tattoo photo as well as the reference image that it was done from. So the artist did a pretty good job of trying to match up the colors and everything, so that was, definitely very good. So the first thing I wanted to focus on was you're going to want to get out like a tight liner, like a 3 tight or just a 3 liner. And you're going to get into their blacks and maybe into a little bit of that Old Orchid. And you're going to want to redefine that eye. There is going to be very minimal line work, but it'll help to really just give that eyeball that kind of hard structure that it's going to have. And it's going to help it kind of really become that focal point of the piece, and kind of start roughly just kind of gently magging in with some of that kind of, probably like dipping that tangerine, or probably dipping that Old Orchid into the cotton candy or into the tangerine a little bit, just to kind of lighten it up a little bit and kind of start creating that lower lid and a little bit of gray to kind of create that little corner of the eye. So a lot of this could be done with a liner, just kind of softly sketching on the skin, or, if you want to do the wider areas with, like a mag, that would be fine too. So definitely jumping back and forth between the liver and some of those warmer tones. So using neutral tones and mixing them with your warmers definitely helps to kind of create that shadow area to push over that bone of where the eyeball kind of rests in, and kind of helps kind of just really make it just kind of pop. So at this point, I'm just going to be basically taking black and whipping it out to kind of really just punch that jacket back a little bit, and kind of pulling it down a little bit more, because I felt like the way it was resolved was just kind of awkward. I thought if it included the elbow where you could see that the rabbit's elbow was bent with the arm up. That kind of helped make it a little bit more clearer what was happening. So the dark blue I'm using here would be like your slate blue, just a really good dark blue that, you could even hit it in the black a little bit just to darken it up a little bit. And then that little highlight along the edge would probably be like, give a good wash out and hit some true blue into that baby blue to just kind of brighten it up a little bit, just to get that elbow kind of marked in. So kind of getting a little bit of that detail work around the cheek and the mouth. So this would all be in black, maybe kind of dipped into liver a little bit just to kind of soften it up so it's not that full strength black, and just kind of gently hitting things in areas to create, these soft edges, because you want the rabbit to still be soft and still read as white, but you also need to get a lot of that contrast in certain areas, because the way it is right now, where there's just like white on that baby blue or that like really soft blue, or white on open skin, you lose that edge, especially on that front cheek area all the way on the left there. So I kind of roughed in a little bit of those shapes. I know it's going to be a little bit warped because that's kind of going around the front of the ankle. So at this point, I'm just kind of going around and really trying to lay in those darks first, because that's one of the main things this piece is lacking, is any dark areas to give those white areas something to pop off of. So right now, kind of working on that ear that's behind the paw that's holding the pocket watch. And just being very careful to make sure I don't lose that hand, but instead I'm just kind of popping it forward to make it look like it's in front of that ear instead of it getting lost. So at this point, I'm going to probably move into more of those neutral tones away from the blacks. Still working a little bit of blacks and blending stuff out, but probably moving more into, a little bit of black, moving into the grays, trying to kind of build that secondary layer of, if this, the head was like a ball, you've got your darkest parts, and now you got to kind of create where it curves around the edge. So kind of just going in and, still a lot of this can be done with liners here and there. A lot of this is really small detail, or you could do it with like a 7 mag, just smaller groupings with a piece of this size. And, you still want to give it a little bit of texture. You don't want it to be completely just smooth as can be, because it is fur. And now kind of building into these areas of white that aren't going to be 100% white. So I'd probably be hitting like dipping my baby blue into the gray and then dipping that into one of the whites to kind of create this very soft blue gray. If you have frostbite blue, you can even pour that and use it for this area to kind of create the forehead area or the bridge of the nose, where it just kind of recedes back a little bit and the fur changes direction, and it gives a little bit more of that that underlying skull structure to it. And still working with the grays to try to really sculpt out, the cheek area and where that muzzle kind of dips in a little bit, and kind of start laying out my palette up there. So back to the jacket, with that true blue and the baby blue, maybe dipping that baby blue into white. When I'm doing realism, I always pour at least 2 whites. One cap will be like my pure white that I just use for my highlights, like the dot of the eye or something like that. And my other cap will be for mixing my colors in. I might even do 3, like a warm mixing white and a cool mixing white. So at this point, I'm just going through and kind of just blocking in where the white highlights would go. And then as I kind of mix them down, it's a little bit easier to see that, like, okay, so the whites would be kind of probably packed over top, like maybe use a liner to kind of sketch the white in, give it kind of that fur look. And it helps to kind of really reinforce the highlight edge of where the light source is hitting the ear and the top of the brow, the top of the nose, and the cheek, and the hand there especially. So getting into the background, instead of it just being all that really just that light, like almost like Bermuda blue on the poster there, I decided to go reverse and put either like the slate blue or something darker against that really just that bright edge of the rabbit, just purely because it needed a little bit more contrast to kind of punch it out. And then as it kind of comes around where that coat is on the right, kind of left a little bit of a halo gap and fill it in with the baby blue there, and then kind of maybe mix it into the darker there, just to kind of give it a little bit of a glowiness there. But definitely right where the white edges are, I wanted to hit it with that darkest blue. So now with the before and after, you could really see how that dark blue edge really does a good job of defining the top of the head and that ear, that is that back ear a little bit. And using a color like liver, maybe tapped into gray, to help kind of push that back ear, you know, that little bit of a lift that the top of the skull will be forming before that ear hits, as opposed to just kind of coming straight out the top. And areas like the glass of the pocket watch, just kind of hitting over that with either like gray or like a little bit of that baby blue mixed in with gray to help kind of create that kind of glariness, and then hitting it with that little bit of white highlight to just kind of lets the viewers know that there is a like that kind of piece of glass over top of the that clock face. And just kind of going back in, and you know, a lot of the little edges of that pocket watch can be redefined with the liner and everything, and that creates that kind of visual contrast of those sharp, clean edges to help define, you know, hard edged objects like the watch. And then you've got the softer edges, you know, like on the fur area where it's kind of more of the softer blending, and the edges are a little bit more softer, like around the brow. So in this final shot, I took the final render and desaturated it and put it side by side to show you that as a black and white image, it still looks good. And that lets you know that there's enough contrast in the image for the tattoo to last for the long haul. Even though there's no like outlines in this piece, you definitely, you know, want to make sure you have enough contrast, enough value, range between the dark tones and the light tones and the warms and the cools, that this tattoo will stand the test of time. And this is a great trick for anybody trying to do color realism, and you could do it mid-tattoo at any point during your tattoo to make sure the areas are developing properly. Just take out your phone, snap a picture of it, quickly edit it into black and white, and you know, if you need to take a quick little break to check it out, make sure everything looks legible as a black and white image. And if you do see areas that need more work, then you need to either come in with a different tone or a different color or something a little bit darker to try to make things read a little bit clearer. So that's something anybody could do, and that will really help in the middle of a tattoo let you know if you got to make immediate changes to make the tattoo last for the long haul. Back whenever color realism started being a thing, and the criticism was, oh, they're gonna fall apart, these tattoos are gonna fall apart. And it's not necessarily that without a black outline the tattoo falls apart per se. It's more that without darks in the appropriate spots and enough of the variation in value in the appropriate spots, the tattoo becomes harder to read. If you have a dark blue next to a red, a lot of times if you put that into like say for example like an American flag, a lot of times you put those next to each other on the black and white, and they're the same value. And that's one of those things that kind of really, especially like if you're working on flowers, if you don't want, if you're doing a yellow flower and you don't want to use black as your shading on that, it's good to go and put that into a black and white photo so you can make sure that you can see the folds of the petals and see the shadow areas. And then you might need to go back and adjust your color temperatures a little bit to make sure that the dark areas are dark enough, because if you're, say, using caramel or something like that as your darkest color, it might not be strong enough to make that flower look real and be very legible for 5 years down the road. Well, that concludes episode 3 of Redo Your Tattoo. I want to thank Jess for sending me in a tattoo for me to redo, and I hope you learned something and found a little bit of inspiration in this video. And anybody else out there who wants me to help take their tattooing to the next level, just check the description for details, and I'd love to help you out. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the video series so far. And if you have any suggestions for tattoo videos that you'd like to see, just let me know.